when Warren Buffett was a kid, he used to go to the Axarban racetrack in Nebraska. And the Axarban racetrack, Axarban is Nebraska spelled backwards. And in fact, one year I think I went to the Berkshire meeting, I think in the late 90s or early 2000s. The meeting was at the Axarban track. The track had closed down and become a meeting venue. So he used to go to the racetrack, and he had a number of different interests in horse racing. But one of the things he was very interested in, at the end of the races, he would pick up all the tickets that people had thrown on the grounds, and he would gather them all up, and then one by one he'd go through each one to see if some drunk had thrown a winning ticket. And as you know, there's a lot of alcohol consumed at the Exarban racetrack, with either people who are drunk or just don't pay attention. And every time he would find some tickets that actually had money in them. And because he was under 18 and it was illegal for him to do betting, he used to send his Aunt Alice to the window to collect on the ticket. So he'd collect all the tickets, then he'd send Aunt Alice to, collect. And he did that, through high school, whatever. And then when he became a value investor, and when he started his own fund, he sat down with the Moody's manual. And the Moody's manual, I bought some on eBay just for nostalgia's sake. But the Moody's manuals are pretty thick. Okay, they're like encyclopedias, and they're very fine print, and they have like three or four companies with a lot of detail in one page. Mostly, it is the quantitative data of these companies. Kind of revenues, cash flows, assets, liabilities, that sort of thing. There's the income statement, balance sheet, and that sort of thing. And there were tens of thousands of companies in these Moody's manuals. And Buffett went through every single company two times through all the manuals. It's a lot of work. I mean, he literally from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., other than for meals, that's what he was doing. And for him, it was exactly the same as the Exarban exercise. What he was looking for is something weird that people had missed. So he would find, for example, some insurance company where the market cap was 15 million and one year's earnings were 25 million, right? And so these were the winning tickets that people had thrown away. And he would find these companies, then once he found weird things, he would research it. And it was real, then he'd, start buying the stock, etc. And even after he got influenced by Charlie Munger and he started buying better businesses, probably I would say a few years back, I would say maybe 10, 12 years ago, I was in his office with my friend Guy Spear. And, I had lunch with him in 2008. And after the lunch, setting up the lunch and all that, I got to know his assistant quite well, Debbie. And so Guy and I asked Debbie if we could take her to lunch before the Berkshire annual meeting, and she said, "Oh yeah, that'd be great." So she said, "Look, the meetings on Saturday, Fridays are really busy because of all these people coming into town. But if you come on Thursday, I can go for lunch on Thursday." So for several years, Guy, me, and Debbie used to go for lunch on Thursday, and to me, the lunches with Debbie were way better than the lunches with Warren. Okay. I mean, we really got the lowdown of what was happening from Debbie. Okay. Buffett has a veneer of diplomacy, but Debbie was awesome. So, anyway, I think we'd go to Berkshire headquarters to pick Debbie up. And then one year, I think Buffett we were very surprised. We went up the elevator and he was there at the when the elevator came up on the 14th floor, he was there at the entrance waiting for us. And I thought maybe he's waiting for the elevator to go down. But he said, "Would you like a tour of headquarters?" And we said, "Oh yeah, sure. If you're twiddling your thumbs and you want to give us yo-yos tours, we're all for tours." And so he took us all over, showing us all the memorabilia and all of that. And then we went to his office, and I noticed he had Japan Company Handbook in his office. And the Japan Company Handbook is the same as the Moody's manual, except it's like value line with one half a page for each Japanese company. and he was going through it. So now Warren was 80 years old, and Aksarban was an exercise he was doing when he was 12 years old. And the Moody's manual was something he was doing when he was 25 years old. All three exercises are exactly the same. Okay. And the amazing thing is, when he's 80 years old and he's managing hundreds of billions of dollars, he knew, he can find nothing in there that can move the needle for Berkshire Hathaway. Okay. It's like, like I told you, the $1 million guys have to move up. They can't stay there, they're going to move up. But the thing is, he loved the hunt so much that he couldn't help himself. And probably if he found something in there, Berkshire couldn't buy it. He probably could buy it for his own account. And he did that with Korean stocks a few years ago, where again, it was the exact same thing. It was quantitatively cheap and he couldn't help himself. Right. And so that is the nature of this investing game, is that um, there will always be winning Aksarban tickets on the ground. And the only question, Itai, is will you bend and make some effort to pick them up and analyze them? So if a person is interested in doing that, I mean, I think that, we have these ancient Indian texts, the Upanishads. They are spiritual, but I think they're very heavily philosophical. And I think there's a quote, let me see if I can remember it. They say, as is your wish, so is your will. As is your will, so is your deed. As is your deed, so is your destiny. And then the punchline is, your deepest desire is your destiny. So if you really, really want something, okay, Buffett really, really wanted to find every single winning ticket that anyone had ever thrown away, right? And so he just went all in on that, right? So if you're willing to go all in and search in the nooks and crannies of the markets, you will find lots of treasures. But you've got to be very passionate about it. And like, I mean, the thing is, I've talked about in some of my past videos that, in 2019, I was visiting Turkey, and I visited this company where the market cap was 20 million and liquidation value was like 600 million. Hallelujah. We're at the Exarban racetrack. And except that in this case, there's millions and millions of dollars on the ground. Nobody wants to pick it up. The entire country of Turkey, 80 million people, have no interest in picking up these Exarban tickets. So the Indian guy from Bandra in Mumbai in India has to go there and do the job for them. It's okay. I'm happy to do the job. And then, in 2015, there was my PEO one, this company, Rain Industries, I had found, and no one was interested. We've got 1.3 billion people in India, they're not interested. And it's okay, I'll help them out. And that's fine. So they are there, in plain daylight, but you've got to be focused on the hunt. And it can show up in very different shapes and forms. And but if you're focused on that, it will happen.
And when you find one of those that's either, let's say, a very low, just a very low, let's say, earnings power multiple or something that's at a huge discount to book value, how important is it to have a near term tangible catalyst for the stock to re-rate? Or do you just feel like the discount is major enough where it'll just re-rate anyways if you've made the correct choice?
Yeah, so I was telling you that the quantitative stuff you got to be a little careful about. Book value, if a company is trading well below book value, it doesn't mean it's worth book value. Okay, it could be worth well above book value, or it could always be worth well below book value. So we cannot just use quantitative screens alone. Or if some companies at a low PE, it may deserve to be a low PE because in 3 years it might be gone. Okay. So, it deserves to be at a PE of 2 because in year 3 it's not there. So I think what we have to do is that when we find things that are statistically cheap, it's only the beginning of the hunt. when something is statistically cheap, and it can be cheap on a number of different ways, we then have to roll up our sleeves. And the first question we've got to ask ourselves is, what I'm looking at, is it within my circle of competence? And can I figure this out? Okay. And if the answer is yes, then I can go further to the next question, and so on. And so I think we have to, even when Buffett started with the Moody's manuals, he was looking for things that were statistically cheap, but he had an awesome business analyst mind. So he could then go from there to looking at, well, how real is this and what's going on here and all these things.